Alright, so we have our hands on this incredible visual aid. We've got two amazing Bible verses that we're gonna unpack. And then we also have this picture of the tribe of Issachar. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. We're gonna look at the first verse, 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 32. The children of Issachar had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do. And sometimes it can be hard to keep track of it all, especially when things don't go according to plan. God has created each and every one of us for a unique time and purpose. That means that the timing of our lives is different. What might be a season of planting for one person might be a season of harvesting for another. Number 1, the secret of Isaac, as outlined in 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 32. When David came to Saul, he said, "I only wanted to relieve my brothers. That's why I went and came back now. But here's Saul." David came to Saul and brought him bread and cheese. When Jesus was crucified alongside the thieves, one of them mocked him, saying, "If you are the Son of God, save yourself and us who are here in prison with you. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what was planted. A time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh. A time for war and a time for peace." These verses highlight the cyclical nature of life. There are times for different experiences and events, and we must learn to embrace whatever season we're in. Whether it's a time of joy, but the other thief rebuked him and said, "Don't you fear God, since you are under the same condemnation? And we indeed deserve this punishment for the things we have done, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus replied, "Amen. I say to you today you will be with me in paradise." Luke chapter 23, verses 39 to 43. This thief, although a criminal, used his last moments wisely. He recognized Jesus as the Son of God and asked him to remember him when he came into his kingdom. And Jesus, in response, promised him a place in paradise. This teaches us that no matter what our background or the mistakes we've made in the past, we all have the opportunity to choose faith and receive God's mercy. And the king asked, "Where is your father and where is your home?" David answered Saul, "I am an Amalekite. Your servant and my father is a small man in the neighborhood." Numbers 17, verse 18. And when David spoke to Saul, it pleased him greatly. He said, "Truly you are a lad. I like you. You shall walk before me." So David walked before Saul. He became well-pleasing in his sight. And Saul took him and made him his armor-bearer. David was a young man who seized his moment when he came to feed his brothers his daily portion. He encountered a giant named Goliath, and despite being terrified, he stepped up and accepted the challenge. It's a classic story of courage and faith. On that day, David defeated Goliath and won the admiration of the Israelites. In doing so, he also secured his place in history. He showed us that we shouldn't be afraid to take risks and stand up for what is right. Even when things seem impossible, remember, David wasn't chosen because he was the biggest or the strongest. He was chosen because he had a pure heart and a willingness to serve God. The children of Issachar had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do. Among them was Zacchaeus, a short man who was rich, yet despised by others due to his greed. But when he looked up to see Jesus, everything changed. He climbed a sycamore tree to catch a glimpse of Jesus, and when Jesus saw him, he called him down and invited himself to Zacchaeus' house. This encounter transformed Zacchaeus' life forever. He became known for his generosity and kindness, proving that everyone can change and become a new person with the help of Jesus. These men understood the significance of time and how their actions could impact the future of their nation. When King Artaxerxes needed a new queen after Vashti was disqualified, Esther, who was a Jew, was chosen and became the queen. Despite hiding her identity, she risked her life to confront the evil Haman, who had plotted to kill all the Jews in the empire. With the help of her cousin Mordecai, Esther revealed her Jewish identity and convinced the king to save her people. Her bravery on that fateful day changed history and ensured the survival of the Jewish nation. They didn't just go with the flow of life, they took charge of their destiny. As believers, we too must develop a strong sense of spiritual discernment. We need to be able to identify the times we're living in and make decisions that align with God's will. Only then can we fulfill our unique purposes and leave a lasting legacy. So it is important that we do and compare ourselves to others or try to force ourselves into a season that is not meant for us. Instead, we need to take the time to discover our own unique rhythm and flow and dance to the beat of our own drum. Because trust me, when we do that, we find ourselves living a life that is not only fulfilling, but also in perfect alignment with God's will. But if we really take the time to stop and pay attention, we can start to see a pattern emerge. Are you in a season of planting or harvesting? Building or breaking down? Laughter or tears? It's important to pay attention to the season you're in so you can live accordingly. Once you determine what season you're in, it's time for action. It's time to move forward with boldness and faith, knowing that God is guiding your steps. There are certain times for certain things. There are seasons for planting, harvesting, building, and breaking down, laughing and crying. And if we learn to pay attention to these patterns and live in harmony with them, we can experience the fullness of life that God has planned for us. We're gonna ask some serious questions throughout this teaching, so be sure to pay close attention. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what was planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time for war and a time for peace. So why did King Solomon include these verses in the book of Ecclesiastes? Simple, because life operates on a timetable set by the Almighty God. He made the sun to rise in the morning and set in the evening because he understands how important the concept of time is. Can you imagine if the sun would stay up all night long? Chaos would ensue. Animals wouldn't know when to sleep. Plants would never grow. Even the stars would lose their position in the sky. Everything has its season, and we as believers must learn to live by divine time and understand when it is our moment to shine. Now, before we get into the second verse, I want us to all read this verse together. If you have a physical Bible, go ahead and open it up to Psalms chapter 104, verse 23. My soul, therefore, refuses to be comforted by any of them according to their mirth, therefore will I portion out unto the end. Now, here's what I want you to notice. When reading this verse, take note of how many times the word time appears. Oh, yes, my soul refuses to be comforted. According to their time, therefore, will I portion out until the time. Therefore, will I portion out until the time. In fact, it appears 4 times within this small passage. Why do you think the psalmist chose to repeat the word time? Well, it's because he understood something profound about life. In life, there are times for everything. And now let's turn our attention to the second verse, which is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 4. You see, life is filled with ups and downs, successes and failures, laughter and tears, light and dark. But here's the thing, even though we're living in the same time and age, there isn't a universal season for everyone. So here's a question for you. What time is it in your life right now? Okay, now let's dive into 10 Bible examples of what it means to seize your season. Next up, we have the story of David in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 14. Next, let's talk about Zechariah. When Jesus entered Jerusalem riding on the colt of a donkey, the crowd spread their cloaks on the road. Next, let's look at Esther, a woman who played a pivotal role in saving the Jewish people from annihilation. The fifth example we'll explore today is the thief on the cross. The sixth example is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 to 4. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven.